Okay, did you ever hear that fact when you were younger, that a pocket calculator or an iPod contains more computing power than the computers that sent the Apollo missions to the moon? Well, I wanted to find out if that's actually true or not. So you know those facts we used to hear when you were younger, like, did you know we only use 10% of our brain at any time? Well, now we have infinite knowledge at our fingertips. Something I like to do is whenever I'm reminded of one of these, is find out if it is actually true or not. That fact about using our brain? False. Brain scans have shown we use all parts of our brain, even while resting. Or did you hear the fact that NASA taped over the original moon landing footage? True, yeah, that one's true. In the early 1980s, due to a shortage, NASA reused a lot of their old tape, including the originals containing the moon landing footage. Or what about the fact that the Great Wall of China is the only man-made object that we can see with the naked eye from space? This one's false. The Great Wall of China can't be seen from space without magnification, but some other man-made objects like cities and airports can. So in this video, I'm going to be taking you down the rabbit hole of that iPod versus Apollo computer fact, and how I came to build Flopify, a tool that lets you compare your device to the fastest computers in history, and find out when your phone or your laptop would have been the most powerful in the world. But along the way, I ran into some weird problems, like what does fast even mean when comparing a mechanical computer from the 1800s to a supercomputer today? And I also needed to learn how to code websites. To briefly introduce myself, I'm Toby. I'm on a journey to build products and businesses and tell the stories behind them on the way. I'm currently learning full stack development, and this seemed like a productive rabbit hole to go down and a good practice for building and launching actual products later this year. So this factoid about the iPod and the Apollo computers was one I'd never checked. So when we talk about computing speed, there are many ways we can measure it, but flops, or floating point operations per second, seem like the best measure to use for this. This is effectively a measure of how many calculations involving a decimal point can a device complete a second. And it's one of the best ways to measure raw computing power. So how is it possible that a device that costs a few $100s could ever be faster than a machine that costs millions, if not billions of dollars? The reason for this is the exponential nature of technology. The rate of advancements accelerate rather than continuing linearly. And this is driven by a number of factors. For example, improving manufacturing processes, breakthroughs that build on previous breakthroughs, and Moore's law, which states that the number of transistors that fit on a chip pretty much doubles every 2 years. And as a result, progress that would have taken decades in the past can now happen in just years or months. And what's really interesting is our brains just aren't built to process exponential growth. As our ancestors evolved, there was nothing that they came across in nature that they needed to understand that followed an exponential growth. Everything was linear. It's like that old question. Two brothers are offered a month's pocket money from their dad. Option A, you get £1,000 a week. Option B, you get 1 penny a day, but it doubles every day. What would you choose? Well, I hope you didn't take option A because you'd have just £4,000 at the end of the month, whereas option B would give you over £20 million. And what's really exciting, and perhaps a little bit scary, is the rate of technological change today. The speed of progress is staggering, and the next 10 years will be even more crazy. So as I went down this rabbit hole understanding computer speed, I realized there isn't really a place online where you can easily see and compare this information. So I started recording the flops information that I was coming across. So this was the point I had the idea to build Flopify, or as I called it at the time, Rate My Flops. Pretty glad I dropped that name. But it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. Now, there are a few aspects I needed to gather to make this work. First of all was the data. I came across lots of interesting machines on my search, like this, the Difference Engine, one of the earliest designed computers that actually works. It was designed in 1822 by Charles Babbage. He started building it in his lifetime but never finished. So I'm here in the Science Museum in London, where in 1991 they finished making a working version of it. It weighs 5 tons and has 8,000 parts. Unsurprisingly, it's pretty slow. It does about 1 calculation every 3 minutes. Although it technically doesn't do floating point operations, that works out at about 0.006 flops. And yes, that's a hand crank. I've coincidentally come across this, the Cray 10, which is another supercomputer listed on the Flopify website. It was one of the most powerful computers in the world in the 1970s, and it came in this pretty funky color pattern. Now, a key part of the website is the chart, and this is where a lot of the difficulty lay. It's actually a pretty complex chart. It's got a lot of functionality and features, and I didn't want it to be buggy or difficult to use. I used Windsurf to assist in certain parts, like setting up the initial file structure. I started with an initial prompt of what I needed, a React chart, and then I edited to get the chart interactivity, the HTML page, and the CSS styling to work as I envisioned. Next was the website structure and the copy. As you can see, like my whiteboards, I had to stop myself at 3 for the home office. But I used these whiteboards to sketch out a wireframe for the different sections of the website and the information I wanted to convey to the user. And the build was all done locally on my machine for speed before hosting it online when it was ready. So back to our original question. Is the iPod more powerful than the computer that sent man to the moon? Now, this is a later generation, but we want to know, is the very first iPod more powerful?
Hello. Today we're at the MIT Instrumentation Laboratory, which has been given design responsibility for this guidance and navigation system, which will direct our Apollo spacecraft on the way to the moon and back.
In the early 1960s, the NASA team needed a way to provide navigation and control for the Apollo spacecraft. But it couldn't be the size of a room like many powerful computers at the time. The machine took just 5 years to develop. It's amazing what some Cold War pressure and competition with the Soviets can achieve.
3, 2, 1, 0. Launch commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff.
What was exceptional was its ability to perform critical calculations in real time. And its size. It was just 32 kilos and was about the size of a microwave. So what was its speed? So it's about 14,000 flops. To put that in perspective, you and I can compute at about 1 flops. So a quick ask of you, I'm just starting out this YouTube channel and indie hacking in general. It'd really help if you could like and subscribe. I'll be building actual products soon and sharing the stories behind the products and how I built them. Now, when the first iPod launched in 2001, it revolutionized music on the go.
We got one of the best design teams in the world, and they have done a remarkable job. And let me show you. Boom. That's iPod. I happen to have one right here in my pocket, matter of fact. There it is, right there.
But just how fast was it? Okay, whoa, so way faster. So the first iPod computed at about 1.4 million flops. So about 100 times faster than the Apollo guidance computer. As an aside, did you ever hear that fact that if instead of buying the first iPod, you'd bought Apple shares, you'd be able to buy a house today? Let's have a look. So the Apple share price has gone up by 670 times since the first iPod was released in October 2001. So that $399 that the first iPod cost, that would be worth around $270,000 today. So not quite the price of a house, but nearly true. Yeah, I slightly regret buying this one a few years later now. And what about my phone today? How does that compare? So I'm using a Samsung S23 Ultra. So my phone would have been the most powerful device in the world in 1995. That's pretty mind-blowing. So that's 2 trillion flops. So 140 million times faster than the Apollo guidance computer. So thanks for watching. The link to Flopify is in the description if you want to compare your device. Let me know anything you found surprising or any machines you want me to add. I'll see you on the next one.